When I think about the woke salaryman, I think about a feeling first, which is what's really special about the comics that you do. What does it feel like to be drawing the comics?
It's interesting you use the word feeling, like it starts with feeling, because I think we are both thinking and feeling. It's numbers and stuff. But numbers and stuff, when you talk about personal finance, that's the finance part. The personal part is feelings and it's heart and it's human stuff. And oftentimes we find that a lot of the decisions that we make, even though it passes through the brain, it's still the heart that makes the call. So we talk about it a lot at the office and we try to do both things. We try to think and feel. And I guess I'm glad that you say it starts with a feeling, because I think that's where it starts and ends. You start your journey into something because you feel something. Then you look it up. You use the facts to guide you to a place where you can make a well-informed decision. And then it's still ultimately your heart that decides to action the thing, or whether you stay on course or not. Whether you apply that heart to have the discipline to then carry out the actions that is logical.
Yeah.
I think this is what we need in life, like the appreciation of both feeling and thinking.
Like a lot of your comics have like this, it's like a simmering frustration, but also like really deep empathy behind the punchline. Where does that come from?
I think it comes from our genuine way that we see the world, but also it's a tactical thing, because we understand that if you want something to work, you have to start and end well. And usually ending well means a certain type of empathy or comfort to say, but it's not all bad. But as storytellers, me and my co-founder, we are very, we are unrelentingly such that we need to say the bad stuff. Meaning, we always say this, like, we want to be a good friend to our readers. And what a good friend is somebody who's willing to tell you something that you don't want to hear but need to hear. And that might mean, Singaporeans call it hard truths. That's a term by Lee Kuan Yew, I believe, you know, which is like bitter medicine. It's good for you, but it's not nice to swallow it. But because it's social media, right, it's stuff that comes to you on algorithm usually. We also have to make it palatable or make it hooking enough. It's a bit like, I consider it almost like a Trojan horse, where I call it heart, brain, heart. This is the sequence of what I try to, the levers I try to pull when I tell a story. So I start with heart to hook you on something empathetic or emphatic that you go, oh, this resonates with me. I access the story. But once I get your attention, I try to convey the facts, the brain stuff, which is usually something people are less, they give you less time on the day to tell them about that, especially on social media where it's so like fast, right? And then we end it on heart again so that they feel something and they're likely to share it, they're likely to remember it and stuff. So that's how we try to structure our messages.
Yeah. It's funny you said remember. I feel like, especially in the age of like fast content, right, it's really hard to remember things. What was the most memorable comic that you put out?
So for me, it was my dog is being small. What do you want? You want to go out? You just go out.
Yeah, I opened for him. He always attention seeker on this one. Yeah.
Oh, actually, no. There's another one. There's a story. Okay, the most memorable story for me was this one that I wrote. It's titled "My First Day at School" (as an immigrant), because I'm an immigrant. Like, I'm from Malaysia, and I'm in Singapore because at the age of 7, my mum pushed me on a school bus and sent me to Singapore to study because she felt that it would be better, because the English education in Singapore is better, and she had a sense that English was something that her child should know. It's just that, you know. So I wrote about how I feel like a lot of Singaporeans who grew up here might take for granted the access of education and opportunities they have because they just started here. There are a lot of people who come to Singapore that did not start off here, that had to go through a lot of things to start off here. And it's a very nuanced and difficult thing to talk about, and we were not, for example, able to completely veer clear of having some people that didn't like the comic, but that's impossible actually. You know, so in the messaging of this thing, when we went to the takeaway part to try to make our point, which is that actually Singapore is not perfect, but there are a lot of things that are very, very awesome about this place that you might want to be thankful for and not take for granted. You can still push for improvement, but appreciate what you just started off with, and remember that there are a lot of people who go through worse things to even get a chance to be able to start off at the position that you just started off at. I'm proud of this because it's difficult to do that, and I think it felt the most like it felt like I had gotten my story and I put a piece of myself out there that I'm very proud of, and like I remember telling myself off of some of the comments we got on this that if the woke segment ended now, I'll be okay because I had told this story.
Wow.
There was a comment that somebody said that moved me to tears. They said, this comic has captured our 心声. 心声 is a Chinese term. I'm not exactly sure what it means in English, but it's like it's captured the essence of my being, something like that.
Wow.
And I felt like, I can do that by telling a very specific story about myself. There's real power in being very honest and authentic and specific to your story.
Yeah. Damn, that's powerful.
I think my personal boss battle now in life is to ask myself whether I'm still an artist at heart, because I feel like what I do at the Woke Salaryman is pretty damn cool. Like if I told myself before I graduated uni that this was gonna be my job, I'll be very happy because I get to draw comics for a living. But there's this thing called the hedonic treadmill and how we are very good at getting used to our current situation. And to get to this point where I am at in terms of the stuff that I do for work and also the amount of money that I earn, which is enough for a lifestyle that's comfortable, I have this devil, or maybe it's an angel, I don't know, on my shoulder that often tells me that I've sold out in life, that I have compromised on my art and my true soul of creation. And I always need the other side of the shoulder, whether it's an angel or a devil, I don't know, to say, hey, but he's living in Singapore, it's expensive. And he has a debt to pay off last time, he has uni debt to pay off. What do you expect him to do? You want him to come out the gate and just do art, whatever the hell, whether people buy it or not? Like, I think like sometimes this act of romanticizing suffering is something that artists do, and I don't even know if it's right or wrong. But I so baked into the culture that sometimes I guilt trip myself like crazy for it. It's the idea that you look at probably who's the most popular artist nowadays that is like alive or dead is probably Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Or Van Gogh. I don't know how to pronounce his name. But we know that he died penniless and he was miserable. He suffered from mental health issues. He cut his own ear off. And that pain is part of what made his work amazing. And in trying to make my life better, I've taken and solved a lot of pain from my life. And I wonder if that has made my art more boring. And it's something that I still can't reconcile. But I'm damn sure a lot of artists in Singapore face that issue. Either they sold out, go and chase a job, go and chase money, chase stability, and then when they reach 30, 40, they don't have that same energy and hunger to tough it through and do these kind of difficult things anymore. Or they just do art from the get-go and find it very, very difficult to monetize, and they feel like, did I waste like the best money-making years of my life in my 20s and 30s trying to be this thing that nobody is willing to pay me to do, and what is this cost of my life? Is it too late for me to find that stability? I think it's very difficult. I don't know what the answer is. As an advice for any young artist, I think you have to be very honest with yourself and ask yourself the question of what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be an artist or a designer? An artist is somebody who creates for themselves without compromise. A designer is somebody who creates to solve a problem. And there's nothing wrong with either, but you have to be honest with yourself. If you want to be a designer, if you want to make a lot of money solving visual problems for people, say that. Don't pretend that you want to be an artist because there's a romanticism there, because somebody convinced you that it was sexy, and then 20 years down the line you regret because you didn't actually chase the thing that you truly wanted. So maybe another way to think about it is, for your first 3 to 5 years after you graduate and enter the world as a creative person or as an artist, give yourself the opportunity to try both things and see which one truly resonates with you. I thought I was an artist at heart until year 3, year 4 in uni. Then I saw that, shit, the school ending already. I gotta step out in the working world. I looked up the salaries for animators. I looked up the salaries for designers and my fellow peers doing photography and stuff. I looked up the price of a HDB flat, a decent one like this, which cost me about 1.4K in mortgage every month. Or if I want to have a condo next time, how much would that mortgage be? And I did the math and like, this is a tough life. Maybe I don't want this. And I have a master's degree in animation and I've never done a single day's work of doing a full-time animator. I've done freelance stuff, but I've never been a full-time animator. And I still beat myself up today about it. Then I gotta comfort myself. I go, no, that's not fair. That's not fair. You had a difficult situation. You make do with what you have to make do. You're an immigrant in a country that is expensive to live in, and it's fair for you to have done what you did. Yeah, I don't know how to tie into a neat bow, but that's kind of what I think a lot about.
Well, I think someone needs to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's important. What do you think creatives in Singapore need to know? If you could say one thing to them.
Oh my God. So it's a good question because creatives in Singapore have a unique problem that a lot of places don't have, which is that it's very hard for you to escape from the brutal reality that Singapore is an expensive city. And if your art doesn't earn money, you still need to pay for the roof over your head, the clothes on your back, and the food that you eat. So it's tough. I think maybe a bit controversial to say this, but I think going viral on social media is easy. If you just keep doing it and you try different things and keep throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks, you eventually do it. But if you want to be a full-time creator, doing that over a long period of time, that's the hard part. Monetization is the hard part in Singapore. And it's hard in Singapore because you have to do it. It's not like if I'm in, for example, New York. New York is an expensive city as well. But I can go to New Jersey. I can go to the suburbs away from Manhattan to live in a cheaper area while I plug away, being authentically me and not earning a lot of money for a longer time than you can in Singapore. In Singapore, where can you go? Pulau Ubin? Johor, maybe, but Johor is another country already, you know? So whereas the suburbs in Singapore, that the cost of living is lower, it's harder. So I feel like we need to, if you want to survive in Singapore as an artist, you cannot see money or profit as a dirty word. You can't do that. You have to bake it into your business model. It is the absolute truth. And a lot of people conflate the idea of art with the idea that if you have to think about a client, if you think about an external force, that's not art, that's not true expression. I disagree. Some of the finest stuff in art history were done for clients. Sistine Chapel, done for a client. He hated it because he had to paint upside down and the stuff was dripping into his eyes. He didn't like it. One of the greatest things of all time. You know, and we have to contend with that. And oftentimes it just so is the case where your true authentic expression of who you truly are is not something that will make money. And that's a very bitter reality to face up. But I see it as a spectrum, not a black and white thing. It's either do art or don't do. I think there's always ways to think about your art and try to spectrumize it such that, well, we can't be 100% art, but can we be 80-20? Can I do 80% true to me, but 20% I give a little something such that it can sell? With music, it's the same thing, ma. If I know I gotta survive by selling something that plays on the radio, immediately got limitations already. It has to be 5 or 4 minutes shorter than that. It's so difficult to have a song on top 40 radio that is 8 minutes. The format is there already. So you have to choose your thing very carefully. Some of us are privileged enough to just do art right out of the gate because either we win the lottery, got a lot of money, or our parents are rich and they can sponsor us. But if that's not your situation, that's not your situation. You can't trick your way into having a rich dad in life. So you gotta deal with it and play the cards as you have it. You know. So I think biggest thing is that you gotta think about money and profitability. Let's not even call it profitability, a nicer word for it, sustainability. If you truly believe that your creative endeavor is good for society and good for the world, it is your responsibility to design your system of output such that you can keep doing it and putting out this stuff that is good for the world that you believe. That is part of your job as an artist, I believe.
You said that you always believed in the power of comics. Who are your comic heroes?
Oh, so many. I don't have my books here because they're all at my office. But a big one is the guy that made Vagabond, Takehito Inoue. He's a master technically, and his dedication to his craft is unbelievable. But also sometimes I think not very doable for somebody living in Singapore. It's just hard to kill yourself to the craft in the ways that they have. I think another example would be this guy called Guy Delisle, who I happen to have his book here. Guy Delisle is is a French animator, but he has also done comics book. And it's not this book. This book is about this guy called Edward Mybridge, who's a photographer. But he has done other books which are like travel logs about his journey into. He went to Shenzhen. He did one of that. He went to Pyongyang on assignment to do an animation studio work. And he wrote about his own uniquely specific experiences in such powerful ways that I just thought it was amazing to be so authentic in such a specific art form and yet also reveal so much about our culture. I really recommend Shenzhen by Guy Delisle. Another one is there's this series called Bone by Jeff Smith. Bone by Jeff Smith is a massive epic work that is just incredible, and I can't even begin to describe it. Artwork is incredible, storytelling is incredible, and it blends this thing of like the art style is almost very cartoony and very like children-like, but the story ends up being so sweepingly epic and has so many big mature macro themes to it. I really love this kind of like juxtaposition of style and the writing. It's a bit like Conan O'Brien said something about how his job is to be stupid and profound at the same time, and I like that a lot. I love this kind of juxtaposition. So that's the kind of things I tend to like. But there's too many. I can't even name them. There's too many.
Okay, I'll probably have to make like a list somewhere to share with everyone.
There's no end to it. I was an early fan of animation, of comics and stuff, and I knew about the profound power that the medium has. In terms of Singapore stuff, I was worried, and I've always been worried because the appreciation of the role of arts in Singapore society has always been a little bit. It's like Tristan did a thing last time about how artists are not essential. I think we all remember that, and I can see where that comes from, because in an apocalyptic situation, an artistic skill set is not as useful as a doctor or agriculturalist. I see that, but I think I always have this like fear of like people not respecting art form and what it can do to interrogate what it means to live in Singapore. But I think the power is there, and when it's good, when it's done well, people will pick up on it. Like our stuff has a lot of local people reading it, and we're very proud of that. It's not something that happens lightly. Why I think it's difficult is if you are starting to come up and you're still raw in your artistic prowess, your expression, or your story writing and stuff. It's harder to start because people here will give you less of a shot at it. Singapore, I think, on the whole, are usually very practical and pragmatic people. And they only respond to, I believe, like good artistic stuff if it crosses the 75th percentile of quality. And they're less like culturally willing to, I believe, give like up and comers a shot, which I think is a bit of a shame.
If you told me that there was a comic that touches personal finance and humanity, I would be very surprised. How did
the correct answer chronologically is that we just wanted to make money. It's not just we just wanted to make but like that is the original motivation. Because me and my co-founder are both creators, content creators. He's more the writing side of creation, I'm more the visual side of creation. And for the longest time, we wanted to try our hand at making our own thing. And we have done sort of the rounds in terms of social media side. We both met in school, but then we also worked in the same companies, like some of the same companies making content and stuff. He went more the advertising route. I went more towards like medtech communication and stuff. But we both also worked at Mothership for a while, which helped us to really understand how social media works. So I think we just wanted to make something of our own, a company of our own that works. And part of making that work and be profitable is to make something original. And a lot of the stuff that people are making back then when it comes to content creation was on cool stuff. Like I think it's not say easier, it is more fun and more accessible to make content about stuff like traveling or tattoos or music. But then the problem is that a lot of people make stuff about that because it's fun. So we kind of realized quite early on that if we want to stand out and also be able to sell things, we might increase our chances of doing that if we make content about things that not a lot of people are making because it's not as sexy. So we actually narrowed down a few, like real estate, medical, personal finance. And personal finance was the one that resonated the most with us. So Actually, my co-founder, Rui Ming, he created the page first. Then later on, I joined him as the illustrator. And then when we combine personal finance writing and visual storytelling together, then we created this thing that didn't exist in this form back then. I think nowadays it's harder lah. Nowadays got a lot more people making content about personal finance. I think the interesting thing here also is that we'll be the first to admit that we are not the best personal finance writers out there. We are not the best visual artists out there. But because we combine these two in good enough ways, we can make something that is viable enough for us to start a small company and have it keep running.
It's funny that you say you're not good personal finance writers, but I feel like
Not the best.
not the best. Sorry.
I think we're good, but it's not the best.
But I feel like the comics you do spark a lot of conversations specific to Singapore. What has that been like for you, and what's the favorite conversations that have come out of it?
It's weird because it has changed, and because we've been doing this for 6 years now. So the emphasis has changed. When we first started out, it was during COVID in like 2019 to 2020. And during that time, the conversation around personal finance was a bit more like, I think, straightforward and objective, because it was more about investing. Because at the time, people were at home. This was also the rise of like mobile platforms like IBKR, Momo, Tiger Brokers, all that stuff, where investing became easier to do by yourself on a mobile device. Last time you had to call your broker and stuff if you want to invest in a certain counter and desk. So that accessibility that made it suddenly that a lot of people were interested about investing. So we wrote on that initially. We talked about investing, and then the more hard personal finance tenets like saving, earning, investing, insurance, and things like that. But over time, since the investing bubble during that period has crashed, not just with the stock market, but with like crypto interest and crypto and NFTs that have kind of burst lah, and it's not where it is nowadays, where it used to be like, 5 years ago. We had to change course a little bit to move towards where people want the stories to be. And we haven't changed completely. We just realized that actually personal finance it touches a lot of different aspects in life, It's not just the money stuff and maximizing the amount of money you earn, protecting as much money as possible so you don't spend it all, and then investing so it grows the biggest. It's also stuff like how you deal with your loved ones, right? If you're dating somebody, at what point do you ask them whether they want to have kids? What kind of lifestyle they want in the future? Do they want to travel the world? How much is that going to cost you? When it comes to your family thing, how do you negotiate an inheritance? Who gets what? When it comes to your parents, how much allowance do you give your parents to be considered fair? So it's all money stuff, but it's also very hard stuff. It's very personal relations and EQ stuff, right? What do I wish people understood more about? I think a lot of people see our comics not in entirety. They don't see everything we've done. So sometimes they see one thing and they make up their minds about our position on something. And I think I'm not resentful of that. It's natural because of the way algorithms are. When I see a comic, I don't see everything else that person does. It doesn't just all download to my head automatically. But oftentimes, I think what we try to be with the page is like, we try to be neutral and central, but we try to be neutral and central not by just stating positions that are completely in the center. I think a lot of pages do that, and that's a mistake because you just come off as being scared to take a stance on something. What we try to do instead, our attempt of being central to where we think the middle is, and that's a big part. People don't even agree where the middle is, right? We try to state positions on both sides of view. And if you just read here, you might forget that we are also understanding of the other side. For example, we might write something about how it's very important to rise above your situation in life, how you have to do your best if you come up from a difficult circumstance, right? To push against it and work hard to move past your lack of privilege. So we might write that, it might anger people and say, oh, you are institutionally biased. You're saying that it's not such a big deal. But then we also write a comic talking about structure and agency and how sometimes institutionally and the institutional forces of how politics are or how culture is might keep us down, and we cannot judge people just because of their absolute position in life, because we all start at different places. So we might do both of these things. And if you just read one, you might think we are just all here, but actually we are somewhere in the middle. And also we are like not just one person in the company, we are now 5 people. And we might all disagree on where it should be, but I think the way to resolve that or bring it to a resolution is we all get our chance to speak our bit and say our bit. And when you are open like that, it's better because you get to hear points of view on both sides. And I think what we often say is that intelligence is the ability to hold two different opposing points of view. Yeah. I hope people can understand that. And I try to extend people that benefit of the doubt every time. If I see something that incensed me or like, wow, what's this? Try to see their full thing, which takes some time and effort, which is difficult in the age of social media, I guess.